sure can pick 'em. But how long are we going to have to wait for George?
He just said to wait until he came.
Well, I'm starved.
Who isn't? He said lunch, not a midnight snack. Anyway, why should it take so long to accept a job? You just walk in, say, yes, sir, I'll take it.
What job is George going to take, then?
I don't know.
You mean he didn't tell you?
Uh-uh.
I don't get the big mystery.
Maybe he's got something sensational, wants to surprise us.
Could be. You know, that character could have his choice of almost any job in town. I introduced him to Mr. Harrison at the bank. Mr. Harrison liked him.
I can understand.
You can understand what?
Hi.
She can understand you've kept us gnawing at the bit for half an hour.
I'm sorry. I got to talking and...
Well?
Well, let's order first, huh?
Order? Look. You called us together like the last page of a paper-bound murder mystery, so now give.
George, please.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to work for Mr. Sloan.
In a gas station?
No, it's not a gas station. It's a service station.
Well, I guess if this is what you want, there must be something to it.
Oh, there is, Beth. Well, there's plenty to it. At least for me.
I don't get it. You made such a big thing looking around for a job. You took such a long time making up your mind.
Well, I wanted to be sure.
How do you know until you try?
Well, look, you choose a bank, okay? Maybe you'll try it and you'll find out it's right for you. Well, I didn't know, and I didn't want to spend 10 years finding out I might be wrong. I wanted to find out now, and, well, look, here's what I did. Well, you see, I'm like most guys. I'm wondering all the time where I'm going, you know? Well, I got to thinking, and I suddenly figured that the first thing I should do is find out about myself. So I made up a kind of checklist. I knew what I liked. I liked people, cars, and variety, outside. Well, if I could help it, I knew I didn't want a routine type job. I don't know, when I began to think about it more, I felt I wanted a job where I could stand on my own 2 feet. I never knew what I wanted before, and I'd never even thought about what I had to bring to a job, what I had to offer. You know, school, training, experience, brains and personality, physical ability, things like that. Well, I started wondering what kind of a job I'd be a success at, and well, what kind of things I would need from a job to be satisfied. Well, look, I made up a kind of list.
Independence? Initiative? Variety?
Independence? It sounds like the 4th of July.
Oh, stop. George must have had some reason for writing it. Didn't you, George?
Well, sure. Well, first I wanted a job to give me some chance to think for myself. And I didn't want it to follow too many routines. Well, I wanted the challenge that came when you had to work things out on the spot.
Okay, Professor. Next chapter. Type of work. Outside with people.
Well, I like people. I like meeting them. Besides, I wanted to work outside, too. I realized I like to get some physical kick out of the work I do. Well, I feel better that way. I'm more my own guy. I wrote down income next because, well, I think it's important for a guy to have some idea of where the job will start and just how far it's going. Last, well, I wanted a job to be steady. A job I could grow with. A job that would let me learn so that maybe someday I could have my own business.
You like it outside. I'm more the indoors type.
Well, I think it's important for a guy to have some idea if he can get a raise within a reasonable length of time. Well, just how far he can go in the business.
Springboard to my own business. What about that?
Oh, don't you want your own business?
Yeah. No. I don't know yet.
I guess everybody's different.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Well, for me, I had to find something that would satisfy all these things on my checklist.
So?
So I looked around at what was available. But first, I decided I'd have to have some way of measuring each job I looked at in terms of me. So I made up a scorecard. I made up a system with a top of 10 points for each section, based strictly on what it meant to me. When I was going to score each section, 3, 5, 8, 9, 10, score each job I saw, depending on how many things it satisfied on my checklist. Then I went out to look over the town.
Well, I like it here, George. Bank's a pretty secure place to work, you know.
Yes, sir. Well, could you tell me how long you've been here, Mr. Harrison?
Well, let's see. Including time out for the Navy, I guess it was about 7 years. Started behind a window, worked my way up. Takes time, George, like everything else.
Well, I suppose there's I don't know, a kind of a routine working in a bank.
Sure, there is, but you get used to it. Me, I like routine. And you've got to have a carefully planned routine in order to take care of other people's money. They trust you with it. There's a responsibility, George, in working for a bank.
When you're out looking for your future, you got to do a lot of listening and a lot of adding up. Well, I figured a bank was too much of a routine thing. So to me, this was worth about 4 points. Bank was inside. I wanted outside. Well, starting salary was as good as any place in town. Could get raises, not too fast, but they were there. Security? Well, sure. But it wouldn't give me much of a springboard to my own business. You could advance, you could get training. And there was a future way out in front of you. But it missed in only one spot for me, so I rated it another 8. Then I went over to the factory, talked to the personnel manager, filled out forms, took a good hard look at what my future might be there. Judgment, sure. Well, I guess so with the new machines you've got to work with. People, well, you got to work with them, get along, but, well, that's not the kick I wanted with people. Well, the factory was certainly no springboard to my own business. I couldn't see my future there too well. So I rated the factory 2, 4, 7, and 3. I talked to a lot of people and a lot of stores, too. It's a chance to think for yourself when you sell. There's a lot of variety. It's a challenge. So I gave it a 10. But the work was inside again. There was no physical satisfaction. You could meet people, sure, and help them solve their problems. A 5. I gave it a 4 here because the salary's not too bad to start, and you could get raises or commissions. Now, the work in a store is steady. It could act as a springboard to my own business, and there's not a bad future there. I scored an 8 with. So don't tell me. Obviously, the service station scored highest for you. But I don't get it. A service station's a service station. It's just a job, George. No. For me, it's the best job. Oh, come on. Well, all right. How do you think of a service station? It's dirty. You get full of grease and oil. It gets in your hair. Okay. Sure. It's dirty and it's tough. And you work long hours. But it's important. I'd been looking at this place all my life. Well, I'd never really seen it before because I'd never looked at it before in terms of myself, of my future. And you know, it's a pretty solid part of everybody's life. That's why it's important. To me, this means there's security in it. It's a business, sure, but it's necessary to the people in town and the community.
Come on in, George. Well, now, like I said outside, you take this application form home, and here it is. And you look it over, and then if you want it, you fill it out and bring it back.
Sure, Mr. Sloan.
Well, what's the matter? You surprised that I run my station like a business? Huh? If I got it nowadays, it would fall flat on my face.
I guess so.
Sit down, George, sit down. Tell me, what do you know about a service station?
Oh, sells gasoline, oil, tires, service cars.
Mm-hmm. What do you see when you drive into a station? What do you think the guys do?
They clean the windshield and check the oil, pump gas.
Mm-hmm. Look at the battery, check the water. That about does it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Service and selling with a smile, huh?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what people see, all right. But, George, did you ever notice a little thing the service station guy does? The way he digs around getting his hands dirty so he can keep this car running? The way he keeps his fingertips all tuned up and his eyes and his ears so he can spot trouble, rough spots. So he can make the most expensive item that people own run better. work better, give them more enjoyment. Did you ever think about that?
Oh, I guess those are the things you don't much think about.
Yeah, those and a few dozen other things that make the service station business tick. Like bookkeeping and housekeeping, selling. Do you ever do much selling, George?
Well, I worked a couple of summers at Hanson's. Now, I like people. I like talking to them, you know?
Sure. Gives you a good feeling. Happens every day, right outside, right there. Tell me, George, did you work long hours at Hanson's, this grocery store?
Well, regular hours, I guess. Days, you know, 9 to 5.
You mind long hours, George?
Not if I like what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Mind getting your hands dirty?
I never thought about it before.
Yeah. Well, George, I think there's a few things you ought to know about the service station business. Come on, you follow me and I'll take you out.
He showed me all right. He gave me the $10 tool with no soft soaping. Well, the job's not easy and you get dirty, but, well, as Sloan pointed out, it's, well, you make a car run better, or you fix something that maybe saves somebody's life. Well, you get your hands into something here, and you feel good at night when you go home because you're working all the time with a valuable piece of another person's property. And you've got to know all about it, the way a doctor knows about the insides of a person's body. The doctor gets his hands dirty, too. There's a kind of a creative part of the service station business I never thought about before because, well, you have to learn to feel and smell and hear trouble before it starts. Your knowledge is always changing. Your mind's always jumping and growing because the models change and improve every year. And he didn't kid me about the routine things. They're there, too, just like they were in every place I'd looked, every single job. Well, this wasn't a job for anybody who was afraid of a little tough, dirty work. He had a lot of pride in what he sold, too. He felt that gasoline is one of today's biggest bargains. He said that the companies are always improving it, so it's 50% better now than it was 30 years or so ago, and the price is almost the same, too, except for what taxes have added. But it wasn't until I watched him work with people, with his customers, that I began to get a feeling of what the service station business added up to for him. Here was a guy who was happy inside. You could see it in the way he greeted people, smiled and talked. Well, people thought something of him. Boy, I saw that people were important in this job. Knowing them, liking them, meeting them on a good professional basis. I don't know, you use your knowledge, your brains, to be alert, to find trouble, to prevent it. It's important. And you're outside. You're figuring things out for yourself. You're standing on your own 2 feet. Just watching this guy and his job, I began to get a little excited. This man, working in his service station with all his knowledge, his attitude, well, this man was just as professional as a doctor or a lawyer or a ball player or anybody else. I'd certainly be thinking for myself on this job. Be a lot of variety, too. It's outside, working with your hands and people. Well, I'd seen it with Sloan. But along with what I liked, there was the dirt and the tough work, so... income. Well, he told me the starting wage, and it was up there with the top ones in town. Getting raises depended on how I improved, but Sloan told me he liked to give them. Well, I did what I did with the other jobs. Security? I didn't know. To the average person, a service station doesn't seem to have any future. Well, I filled out my application anyway. And up to this point, I was interested, but I wasn't sure.
Well, I need somebody, George, but I want to look this over a little more carefully, and then I suppose you want to think about it some more, too.
Yes, I would.
Always looking for good men at service station, George. Men who are going to be steady, solid. I don't want you to think it's going to be easy.
Oh, I know, Mr. Sloan.
Okay.
Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you one or two questions.
Oh, sure, George. Go ahead, shoot.
Well, I've got to think about my future. Not tomorrow or next week or even next year, but...
Sure, George. I know. I was your age. There were certain things I wanted out of a job. Certain things I felt good doing. So I went to work for somebody else, like you're going to do. I went to work in a service station. Well, I met a lot of people, watched them come and go. Learned, studied, worked hard while doing it. Didn't think anybody was watching me. Well, sir, one day, a couple of years later, a man named Mr. Jurgens, a man from the oil company who supplied our products, came to see me. And he said, Bob, we're going to open up a new station. How would you like to take it over? Well, sir, I thought he was kidding, you know. I mean, where would I get enough money to buy my own station?
I suppose you could borrow it from a bank, couldn't you?
Well, I needed a little more than I had then, or what I could have borrowed. But the oil company backed me up, and here I've been ever since. Got a nice house, home, family. Of course, there were a lot of things I didn't know when I was working as an attendant. A lot of things that I had to learn to know how to run my own business. I had to learn about taxes and credit. They were whole new things to me. I had to learn how to get people to come into my station, how to merchandise. And then, as a businessman, I found that I had certain responsibilities to the community. I had to be a good business citizen. So I had to learn about public relations. And then I had to set up my books, organize my business in a professional way.
Hey, where do you learn all that?
A lot depends on yourself, of course. But the oil company backs you up there, too. They give courses. They teach you business management, how to be a good supervisor. You kind of learn while you work. You grow with the job and with the people in the business community and the clubs you join.
Well, that makes sense to me, but doesn't...
Oh, sure, George. What I'm talking about applies to any business. But the important thing is that here, right here, I'm doing all these things myself, for myself. And I got to know them all myself, too, not just a part of it. You ask about a future. Well, I don't know about you, but I got one. A lot of other people get it with a service station, too. You grow with it. You grow into it. You grow as big as you want to get and as fast as you want to go.
Well, there it was. When I added up all the scores, the service station came out on top. For me, it was the greatest. It satisfied practically everything I wanted from a job.
Sure, for you, fine, great. For me, But don't worry, in 20 years I'll have my chauffeur bring all my cars to you. Let you take care of all of them.
For some reason, I feel real proud, and I haven't done anything.
Hey, since your boyfriend's going to be so successful, what say he buys lunch for all?
Oh, sure.
Oh, no, I'll treat.
Now, wait a minute, Beth.
No, I'll buy lunch. I want to. George has got to start saving for his own service station. Don't you?